My name is Steve Stubbs. I'm the Registrar at the University of North Georgia, and I'm actually in my office today in Dahlonega. So I come in about once a week, so that's where I am today. This is the Registrar Roundtable first time for GACRAO. So I think it's going to be interesting and excited. We have Taylor King with us today, the president. We are honored. I'm glad.
So, hello, my subjects. I mean, what in the world do you want me to say to that, Steve?
Humor's always good.
No, but seriously, we're glad that you all are coming in and taking time to talk with one another and solve issues through everything we're going through. So we are recording, so we will post this to our YouTube page. So I just want to let you guys know that as well.
Great. So I think maybe first I see about what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, 7, 8 of us now. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a question or a comment, if you could just let us know who you are and what institution, and I guess maybe your position title as well might be helpful. That would probably be good. I do have in my office with me my associate registrar, Suzanne Javeley. Hello. You can say hello. So she's going to be helping out today and keeping us on track with some topics. So, but I think maybe my first question is to get started. We were talking a little bit before we opened it up. Is anybody has some pressing question or issue for the group? Maybe that we can provide some assistance or solution for at this point. Does anybody have anything pressing that they're just dying to ask, or if not, we have some other things, other topics we can move on to. So, anybody have anything?
Well, I guess it's not it's kind of a question, but when's everybody opening up and/or opening up to students? When are you having like a faculty staff coming in at some point, and then students are able to come in, or how's that working for your institutions? This is Mike Red at Kennesaw State, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, Michael. So here at North Georgia, we are phasing in a return to campus for faculty and staff. We were going to start this week. They postponed it to June 15th as for the phase 1.
Okay.
And so we've got a 3-phased approach. I'm not sure if every institution is doing this, but our first phase is going to hopefully start June 15th with a limited number of people coming back to campus, and some of them doing both, working from home and working from campus. So phase 2 is probably more additional staff coming in, and maybe even other staff maybe working the whole work week on campuses. So, and then I think their hope for phase 3 is to have most folks back on campus working, and that would be in time for the fall semester, and probably a week or two before that with the orientations and welcoming students back on campus. So, anybody else want to chime in? Michael, do you all have plans there at Kennesaw?
Well, right now it's very similar to what y'all are doing. We're looking at next Wednesday. I don't know how the 10th was chosen, but it seems to be the 10th was chosen to start people coming onto campus. Also, it'll be close. The next week is the start of our reinstatement period, and so some people, again, working from home. In our office, we have a phased approach, or a schedule approach. We have half the staff kind of coming in one week, the other half of the staff coming in the next week, with the leadership team staying, all the whole time. When we go back, we go back.
Yeah.
But other staff was to again limit the number of people. All our buildings remain closed But for instance, students can still come and make appointments or whatever, and we'll see them to pick up documents and that type of thing. They've done some, put some sneeze guards up and, done some tape on the floor. I haven't seen it all yet. I'll be going in tomorrow to kind of check all that out, but
Yeah.
to keep the kind of social distancing going, but that's where we are.
Yeah, it's, in our conversations in enrollment management here at North Georgia, the last one we had, it seemed like the two biggest things were the plastic guards in the offices and ensuring that we have enough supplies and the coordination of all of that. And it becomes very interesting, I think, to see how some of these really small details become such a big impact across some of the campuses, depending on the size. So, but yeah, we're trying to have all of those things in place by the time, right now we don't have plans to allow students back on campus, probably until phase 3 is my guess. So, anybody else want to, any other discussion about returning to campus, campuses for the fall?
Hey, this is Gina Floyd. I'm the registrar at Shorter University, and our staff returned back to campus on May the 18th. We're a pretty small school, so like in our office here, we're definitely socially distanced anyway. How that goes, and we have some increased hand sanitizer stations and things like that. And normally we have a window that students come up to. Right now we have not been having students on campus until this week, so I'll get back to that in a second. But we stop the use of that window and have some socially distanced setups so that students will come to our door instead of coming to our window but not cross the line, that kind of thing. So we've been able to set up those kinds of things. We do all of our spring and Maymester classes were fully online, but in June we started back with on-ground classes. Again, we're a small school, so it is, with our on-ground classes for June, it's less than 30 students who come on campus, and we have we're able to socially distance in the classrooms that we're using because of the small size. And we did try to space the classrooms out, so even though that small number of students would not have to, cross paths on a regular basis, that kind of thing. And our administration put up some guidelines for students who are returning to campus online, and we just reached out to them as well. Not online, on ground, I'm sorry.
A question for you, Gina. This is Suzanne, University of North Georgia. So you say you modified a little bit your students coming in rather than coming up to your window, coming to your door. How are you assisting those students? Do they make an appointment, or are they just coming to drop something off? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Right now, we really are not seeing students in our office. So we have a one-way in, one-way out campus. And the students who are enrolled in classes for June are on a list at that front gate. And so we still aren't, I wouldn't say that we are open to visitors or anything like that. We are still accepting our forms and things like that remotely. But let's say, like yesterday, one of the students in the June term wanted to talk about dropping his class. So he came by, but stood on our X and we stayed in our spot and were able to help him out then and that kind of thing. We have we even have a box set up so that, for instance, that student wanted to turn in a physical form to us, they would put it in the box and then we would get it later, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's actually something we don't have on campus here or campuses that we thought of during our meetings over the last several weeks, that just a drop-off box to lessen the number of students walking into the office if they just want to drop something off. I don't know if anybody else has been doing that, but it's just something that we're probably going to do in our enrollment management areas for admissions financial aid. Yeah, and I think it's a good idea just to drop something off. Obviously, if they have questions, that's a different story.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for what we're encountering right now.
In the spring, we turned some of our forms into editable PDFs so that they could be submitted electronically. Another thing, we couldn't do that for all of them in that quick turnaround time. So another thing that we did was we garnered signatures through email instead of having the students do that.
Yeah.
And we're continuing that through August 1st. Right now is the plan, but my goal is to get all of our forms PDF editable so they can at least email them back to us. And like, we're super old school. So that's where we are. I would hope one day to be much more digitally friendly, but that's just where we are with those.
Yeah, I understand. That's on my to-do list, that we've got some online, PDF online, some not. So yeah, it's not an easy transition, I guess. So, and it's usually not top priority by any means. So yeah.
Exactly.
That reminded me, I guess, is, you know, I was talking a little bit earlier, maybe before the meeting started, is I've been coming to campus maybe once a week. And a couple of my other staff have been coming to campus as well. You know, maybe one or two of us on campus at a time, but no more. Has anybody else been doing that? I expected everybody to do that. I don't know how you get around that. You have to come to camp. We are always getting various things in the mail in the registrar's office that we need to process, and you know, and a lot of it is secure, needs to be secure. So you know, sometimes just sending it through the mail, the old mail is the safest way, and I don't know of any other way around that. So you know, we get various forms, and that's why I've been coming to campus, or somebody has to process. So
our mailroom made that really easy for us because they are only open on Wednesdays from 11 to 2. So we send someone in every Wednesday to get the mail. It's actually phenomenal to me to see how much our mail has decreased. We were very clear online with a lot of our forms and put a lot of messages places saying, you know, sending us mail right now is not the best way to get in touch with us. And so what we're really seeing are a lot of immunization forms that are coming in, and not much else. But we have someone come in, open the mail, scans it all, runs it through the copier, sends it to the people who need to enter it and stuff. But we were able to get the mailroom to come in to help us mail diplomas, which we really appreciated. And that took, you know, 10 times longer than it should have because of, you know, everything else and all the drama of coming to the office. But my staff has not been in the office since May 16th, maybe May 13th, May 16th, they've been home. And we've been going in very, very sparsely. So I don't think I've been really on campus interacting with anyone since like end of March.
yeah. We do get a lot of our mail comes into the university, and it goes directly to our imaging center. But we always get those odd things that don't, you know, we've got multiple addresses and we have to have that covered. So, but yeah, anything centralized like that, wow, it's a huge bonus. So, anybody else have any thoughts on? Again, I go back to this thing. It's such basic things that we've all done. We've had processes and procedures in place for so many years that this happens, and you got to scrutinize just the bare minimum things of what you're doing. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that? Yeah, okay, we'll move on. Next topic. Suzanne's kind of reminding me what we had a large discussion yesterday at the USG meeting about fall class scheduling. And to me, it is overwhelmingly complex on how to handle that. I just can't imagine. Now, I will say, and we need to keep it among this group, that University of North Georgia Registrars Office does not do class scheduling, and I want to keep it that way. So, but even in the conversation yesterday, with social distancing and trying to schedule classes in fall, I just can't imagine, what that looks like. I can to an extent, but if anybody has any thoughts or any good ideas on how they're handling that.
One of the things that we've worked out is that, everything related to our mission at Georgia College is residential face-to-face. We don't even allow undergraduate courses to be online in the fall or the spring, ever. So we do know that we're going to have some folks with accommodations. And we are going to have some classes online this fall as a result. We have worked really closely with HR to make sure that when people turn in their applications for accommodations, we are notified, so that as we're sitting and looking at this giant mess of a schedule that needs to be reorganized, we can at least say, these 40 people don't need classrooms, and we can just take them out of the list and out of the mix-up. We started using 25 Live for classroom scheduling last year. It was the absolute bane of my existence, still is. And we had at the time a provost who was very determined that we were going to use the software. We are going to try to kind of reverse engineer it. So, instead of aiming for a high percentage of use, we are going to try to aim for a very low percentage of use. And we're retrofitting a lot of our event spaces to become classrooms. We're trying everything we can to get an entire class socially distanced and face-to-face. Yeah. But right now, our architect and our health and safety guy are going classroom by classroom and measuring spaces. And in some cases, just because of the way the classroom's laid out, we're going from a classroom of 55 to a classroom of 18 because it's long and narrow and there's just really no place to put people. They have fixed seating and, we're just stuck. So we're getting all of that laid out, and I'm quite honestly expecting that it's going to take the entire month of July to get our rooms rescheduled, to figure out which classes are going to go on staggered schedules. Our CIO is worried about getting the technology in place to make sure that happens. Yeah, overwhelming is exactly the right word.
Anybody else? Thoughts on class scheduling?
Right now, we've put a stop to any changes to class schedules, as far as if you were on face-to-face, but you want to go online, we put a stop to all of that. We're just kind of sitting and waiting, not waiting, but we're just kind of sitting back and going, okay, we got to figure this out. The same thing with K. It's like, take a 150 seat classroom, because the way it's configured, you can't use every row, you can't use every seat in every row, or even every other row. You get 150 down to like 20 or 30 people. And then it's hard to do, and with the technology, it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing everywhere. It's the same, trying to deliver a synchronous class to, okay, these 20 students are in today, the next 20 students will be in on Wednesday. It's just.
Yeah.
Yeah, has anybody figured out a good way to do this? I did see in a communication from Georgia State, I don't know if we've got any Georgia State people here, that they had pretty much kind of described to students that if they were in a Tuesday, Thursday class, half were going to come on Tuesday, half were going to come on Thursday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it was going to be by thirds. And that's how they were setting it up. But I know in our case, that's not always going to meet the social distancing requirements. And, you know, we've talked a lot about assigning students to groups for staggering. And, you know, quite honestly, we don't want a student to know that they really only need to be on campus on Monday and Tuesday.
Mhm.
And so we don't want to kind of lay out a claim there, but we also don't want to put the burden on our faculty to have, you know, to decide where the breakdown's going to be, and then having them just nagged back and forth about, you know, but if I can only come in the Friday group, then, you know, this will happen. And if I can only do this, and we haven't even started figuring out accommodations yet for students who will not be able to return because they're at risk.
Yeah, that the whole tracking thing of splitting a class up, you know, we're already using class numbers to identify sections, and doing that further, you know, you're exactly right. How do you put that burden on the faculty with everything else they're trying to accomplish? It's just, I thought about that yesterday. Like, that's just not fair. It's too much. Wish there was an easy answer, or at least something better answer. All right. What do we have? What else?
What about virtual one-on-one virtual meetings?
Oh, that was
Talk
yours.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Is any? I guess the question is anybody doing one-on-one meetings or plan on meeting them one-on-one virtually with students?
I was kind of in a work group, and this came about in a work group on when we start bringing visitors to campus. And obviously, you know, I don't like to call our students visitors. So our students, bringing students and or parents, and, you know, back to campus. And so they want us to try to do as much virtual meetings as possible. So maybe a one-on-one virtual meeting instead of bringing the student into the office. So I didn't know if anybody has started thinking about that for the fall, maybe doing a virtual one-on-one with a student, and if so, kind of what platform are you using or will you be using?
Or maybe doing it already, I guess.
Yeah, maybe doing it already. Yeah.
We had all of our academic advisors and all of our student affairs personnel ensure that each student had at least 2 calls when we made the transition to make sure they were okay. And we did a lot of those by phone.
Yeah.
But we are preparing all our academic advisors to do virtual meetings just because the cubicles they're in don't allow for any social distancing. I mean, they're practically sitting knee to knee with students already. And so all of their meetings in the fall will be virtual. They are expected to meet with every student. So we'll be setting those up and scheduling them just like we would a regular appointment. And financial aid is doing the same thing on our campus. So they're going to do virtual meetings, especially replicating the ones that they usually do with parents and students during orientations. And we are also going to, financial aid and the Registrars Office are both located in the same building. And we have a conference room fairly nearby, and we are just taking command of that. And we're going to use it as a spot if we have families come in and things like that, where we can socially distance in that room, you know, with family members and allow people to talk confidentially about things. But, you know, even we've been telling the faculty, you know, they're going to need to do virtual office hours because their rooms, their offices are also too small.
Well, one thing that just hit me as we were talking about classrooms, and okay, great, we were figuring out how to social distance in the classroom. What about the hallways? I mean,
Other areas.
yeah, well, yeah, other areas. You know, you get out of class, you walk down the hallway, you got 50 of your best buds right behind you. I mean, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's true. And
Well,
then the public restrooms, and, you know, if you're going in between classes, you only have a certain amount of time to use the restroom. So there's so much to think about, factoring in.
All those social areas for students and student union and whatnot. So yeah.
We talked about elongating our schedule So, you know, to allow more passing time in between classes.
Yeah.
And decided that was just going to frustrate people more than it was going to help. So, you know, Plant is on campus right now, like setting all the hallways up to be one directional. And, you know, we're following like Aldi's plan for, you know, making sure everyone goes in one direction or another. But, you know, one of the things we've talked about a lot on our campus is that, you know, we are doing everything we can to make this work. But we know students are going to go back to their off-campus apartments after we're done.
Right.
And they're all going to have a party, and they're not going to wear masks. And you know, one of our other directors is pretty fond of saying, you know, we give them free condoms too, but we know from the health center that they're not using them. So trying to get them to use masks is going to be equally difficult.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't know what that's going to be like when we actually have students start passing the virus because of their out of class interactions.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I mean, just on admissions, we were talking about, we can go down this rabbit hole forever and try to solve every issue. And it's just going to continue to open up more challenges that we need to face. And we spend all of our time and resources trying to make sure everyone's exactly 6 feet apart or more. But at the end of the day, like, we can't do everything, right? There's just, it's so limited. Because we have to, I mean, we have to teach class and we have to go to school. Just, you know, at some point we have to say, this is going to be the guideline. This is going to be where we stop, and we say we've done as much as we can. That's a hard decision to make.
Yeah.
And it's above the pay grade of everybody probably on this call.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We have an action team meeting about these things, and one of the things that we have talked about is empowering the students, and trying to think of ways of how we can do that so that students will take ownership of protecting their own health and everyone's health and our whole environment. Or encouraging our student leaders to take active roles in that, our faculty and staff leading by example, having, you know, additional communication than we normally would about those kinds of things, and using as many different forms of communication as we can. But I think that's one thing that's that is tough. I mean, they're adults, but they're young adults, and you can only do so much as right.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I'm looking to see anybody else have any comments.
I mean, just how often have y'all set up times with your campus, you know, like cleaning and maintenance, just to make sure everything's clean on a regular basis? Is that something you guys have talked about as well?
Oh,
That's a good question.
yeah.
The answer on our campus is more, but nobody can give us some real specifics on how that's going to happen. So.
Yeah.
I mean, because realistically, after every visitor that comes to your office, it needs to be sanitized. Well, who sanitizes that? Is it your staff? You know, I know at Piedmont in their admissions office, they're buying cleaning supplies themselves and disinfectants themselves. And, you know, I was talking with Point, and like they've already spent $7,000 on hand sanitizer that may not last through halfway through the fall.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, our budgets are limited. We can't spend every dime we have on cleaning supplies.
That did come up, Taylor, in that visitor work group that we were involved in, talking about, you know, allowing one person in the time, but when that person leaves, then sanitize. But again, whose responsibility? Is it our staff, or, you know, the person that's our front desk assistant's responsibility? So we're still kind of in conversations about that, but we're saying more, but we're still in conversation.
We're gonna have to limit it as much as possible.
Right. Interaction.
yeah, of people coming into the office, and that's not easy to do. Let me ask you, change the topic. Did everybody make it through spring okay? And maybe looking at it as like, okay, we had the spring semester, it was completely one of a kind, and it ended, you know, and looking back on it, is there anything, I mean, for me personally, here at North Georgia, yeah, we extended our withdrawal period, and that presented a lot more work, and we switched everything to online, you know, in March, and that was a whole lot more work. But I think once everybody got settled at the end of, when I did my end of term processing, it all kind of, it was fine. There wasn't anything like significantly that delayed, or, you know, even with graduation and awarding degrees, we did extend our period to award degrees for spring graduates a little bit longer for incompletes, or, you know, whatever the scenarios may be on a case-by-case basis. But other than that, I mean, I think for me it went pretty smooth considering what we had just gone through for spring. I don't know if anybody else. And I say that because in terms of reflection and going, you know, going forward with, you know, through the end of summer and the end of fall, what those will look like. So.
Well, one of the things that was interesting to us is that we had done some early surveying of our students about how they felt about getting ready for the transition, just kind of a stress test.
Yeah.
And they were completely wigged out.
Yeah.
So, you know, we prioritized them over other people as we were getting ready. And we also extended our withdrawal day to almost the last day of class. And so our withdrawals went up maybe about 1% as a result. About 200 kids took us up on the option to drop out of their class, and we were good with that. We didn't have many appeals, but we did have a lot of grade inflation. So we had probably 12% more A's than we've seen in any regular semester for 10 years. And we saw far fewer students on academic warning, by half. So, you know, for the students that we kept telling, stick it out, you might be surprised. You know, I think in the end, they were pretty pleased with what happened, but they were very clear at the end of the semester that they hated it.
Yeah. Wow. We actually, we implemented for our when we extended our withdrawal deadline, we implemented a process where we delegated out the withdrawal requests to various staff around the university, either whether it was a full semester withdrawal now that, you know, everything had switched online, or whether it was course by course, class by class. And we ended up having less withdrawals because of it. Now, yeah, it took a lot more folks involved in the process and somewhat more time. But we're going to go forward with that, and we're doing it this summer as well and into the future. It's a hard thing to do, obviously, with the larger enrollment you have, but I think it was one of the few benefits for us that came out of the whole situation. So, you know, in the end, the withdrawals still come to my office for processing in the information system, but other staff around the university are part of that process now. So. One of the good few things that came out of it. So, what else do we have?
With end of term for spring, was there any adjustments for transcript orders? Did they pick up?
Oh yeah, I guess, yeah, even just transcript processing in general with the scenario. So we had, you know, we give the students the option to pick up transcripts on campus if they want, you know, through our system. And of course, we completely shut that down in, you know, early to mid-March. and just, had any, those orders come in, if they want, we can mail them or whatever. So did anybody have any transcript processing adjustments with this? Ours seem to be going pretty good otherwise. So.
The only issues we've had are the authentications for students who need apostille.
I wanted to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, and so I've only had one that I had to go into the office, get somebody print it, leave it for me, get in the office, authenticate it, and have my signature notarized. But the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Authority has started back in, gosh, maybe even early March, having mail-in only. So the students had to mail it to the student, and the student had to mail it into the Georgia Superior Court Clerks Authority for them to get the actual apostille. And then I guess it got sent back to the student or wherever. But that's the only issue as far as transcripts go. I would say we're 99+% electronic transcripts now. The only ones we do print are the ones for authentication and for someone to do apostille. That's the only ones. Those are the only ones.
We have some that are still imaged, but we have to print them out, are really old records that come to us through our ordering system. So that's another one of the reasons why we have to come into the office every once in a while to get those printed out on transcript paper and mailed out. So they can't go through our vendors. So.
We actually simply made a letter on letterhead that we saved that basically said, we're not in the office right now for those older records, and we can access the records easily. It's just a question of getting them printed on paper and stuff like that. But we've been asking for an email address, and we've been sending them together as a set with that letter attached, and have had no complaints.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, I haven't had any. Well, I do have one request for an apostille that's I think it's in process for a diploma, and I think he's ordered it, the student. But I'm not quite sure. I haven't had one since March, since we started this, so I'm not quite sure I haven't thought about it since I talked to the student what I'm going to do. But I'm usually the one apostilling it, and then having the student take it down to Atlanta. So, but that's that was initially a thought we had talked about in March about how am I going to handle this, and I haven't had one till now. So. Well, it's good. I mean, what else do we have?
This is just a question I had because I handle this, but how do you guys report your, do your grade reporting to high schools for your dual enrolled students? How do you report those grades? Are you sending transcripts or are you sending a grade report?
Hey, this is Amy Wilkerson at South Georgia. I send a report to each high school. I don't send individual transcripts. I have all of the students from that particular high school in a report with the grades on it. Now and it's listed just in alphabetical order. I've had one high school now ask me to send it by class or something. She said it would be easier for her to input, and I'm just like, okay, let me think about it. So, but I can never get it, make all of them happy at the same time. So,
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Are you mailing that, or is that?
No, it's end up being like just a report that I make into a PDF, and then my IT helps me, and we put it like in a secure file box, and then I send a link to the high schools, and they have a password, and then I send in a separate email a password.
We have our students, when they apply for a dual enrollment, sign a release of their transcript at the same time. And then our dual enrollment coordinator just works with us at the end of each semester, and we normally print transcripts for each school, and they come in and pick them up.
Yeah.
because they're eager to have them. This year, we did them electronically, and we just ate the cost of sending it so that they could get them quickly and didn't have any issues.
I think my big obstacle was trying to get an email address for each high school. Because, sometimes high schools are multiple counselors on high schools, and sometimes there's staffing changes. So yeah, I think that was an obstacle we were having if we were going to go electronic.
Yeah, and we're a little luckier too. We haven't had, we don't have huge dual enrollment numbers. We might have between early college and dual enrollment, maybe 80 students a semester. But Georgia Military is up the street from us, and they have hundreds.
Oh, yeah.
Most of our students in the area go there.
We're one of the highest, I think. I think we had 1,300 this past spring. So yeah.
Yeah. We're not in that at all.
And I just thought that sending a transcript for each student for 1,300 of them, with only one semester's grades on it, it just seems like it's a lot for such a little. So we switched over to grade reports that we issued, and so yeah, it's not an easy task. And the larger the number gets, I did think of one thing we were talking about with Taylor before we started the meeting was, does anybody have a summer graduation ceremony commencement?
Just found out today that ours is no longer being held.
No longer. Okay. We have one, but right now it's still up. They haven't decided yet. I haven't heard. It doesn't come out of my office, but as of yesterday or the day before, they still didn't know. So yeah.
We haven't announced, but we're trying to do our makeup May ceremonies in early August, and have no idea if that's going to work out.
Yeah.
The closer we get, the least likely that appears. But we luckily don't have a ceremony in August, but we do have a very large freshman convocation, and we're already in the process of dividing that up and doing that completely differently.
Yeah.
We're looking at September right now, again, targeting September for those spring and summer graduates who want to come back and have it like a special ceremony, or even talk is also to add a day or two to our regular ceremonies in December for spring and summer folks. We're not anticipating a huge number of those folks who want to come back and walk, but you just never know.
Yeah, we put out a message, it was probably early April, to the students about if they wanted to attend our summer ceremony, the spring graduates, they could. And so we're maintaining that list, and we're getting ready to send out another communication to the students. I wanted to wait until after we awarded degrees to actually send out that formal invite. But again, we're still at a point where we don't know whether we're going to have it. It was probably going to be around August 6th or 7th is when we would have it. I think it was on the books, but they don't know. And so yeah, all these large events, convocations, not easy to manage. I think we covered all the topics. Has anybody had any FERPA issues since we switched, since the virus came about? I mean, I think we've been good too. We haven't really had any issue relative to FERPA because of the virus. So I just wondered if anybody had, which is good because
I think one other thing is someone mentioned orientations. What are they looking like this summer? We had a, for our fall starters, and we had one virtual orientation for our summer starters, and it was a little rocky, but it went great once we got everything kind of worked out. So kind of to handle FERPA with that, we had a large kind of advising appointment session where they do the group advising, And then if a student had a particular question, we're kind of routed to a private chat room with myself or registrar staff or advisor, and we would work one-on-one with that student, and then they would go back to that group chat room. But how is everyone handling orientation this summer for your fall starters?
We're putting ours online.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be a self-service option. We're getting, gathering all the videos and stuff now from academic departments and stuff like that. And luckily, we don't register our students at orientation. So that gives us a little more buffer. All our students are already registered for fall.
Yeah. Yeah, we advance schedule all of our new freshmen for fall, and then usually bring in the orientation. But I think most of they usually have an online pre-orientation piece they have to do, and then everything else now is they have it set up online. We are doing. I did a session for new students a couple of weeks ago through Facebook. The orientation folks asked me to do it for if they had any questions relative to the Registrars Office. So that was interesting. But yeah, Facebook Live. So yeah, I didn't get. I think I got one question, but hopefully the information that I presented to them was helpful. So I imagine I think they're doing that for other departments, kind of taking the orientation and breaking it down by department and offering these other options online for things. So any other topics, any other questions anybody wants to bring forward? We're good here. It's about what, 2:40, 2:45, 2:50. So well, I appreciate everybody coming today and listening and speaking. It's hopefully it's been helpful to some folks to get some ideas. I got a couple of ideas from you all. Thank you. If nobody has anything else, thanks again, and have a good rest of your day. Take care.